Our guest today normalizes the ninth grade experience for everyone involved. Whether you're a counselor who's about to step into this new position or you're experienced and you've been working with ninth graders forever and a day. Maybe you're listening as a counselor who is also the parent of a child who will be a ninth grader one day. Or maybe you're just a former ninth grader yourself. You're going to find yourself flashing back to ninth grade, remembering how fast it truly went by. This week, you're hearing from Felicia Carter, a ninth grade counselor in Western North Carolina. Felicia is starting her 19th year as a high school counselor with about a decade spent mainly helping out with ninth graders. She loves to chat about her experience as a school counselor, especially high school transitions. Her motto is to work smarter, not harder in this job that can be all-consuming. This conversation just brings solidarity to the nerves that ninth graders are bringing into the building and the drama that they're toting along also. So much drama, Felicia says. I think my favorite part of the episode was just hearing how Felicia practically makes it all come together every year, even with a caseload of 400 students. So I hope that's encouraging to you. She'll tell us what she's learned in her 19 years as a counselor and what she's let go of along the way. You got into this profession to make a difference in your students' lives, but you're spread thin by all of the things that keep getting added to your to-do list. I can't create more hours in the day, but I can invite you into my Counselor Click where you'll finally catch your breath. Come with me as we unpack creative ideas and effective strategies that'll help you be the counselor who leaves a lifelong impact on your students. I'm Lauren Tingle, your high school counseling hype girl, here to help you energize your school counseling program and remind you of how much you love your job. Hey, Felicia, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have a longtime follower and podcast listener on the pod.
I know. It's so fun. It's like talking to a friend. I feel like we've disconnected over the whole high school counseling world and then just been able to grow that. So it's just fun. It's like talking to an old friend.
It is. I'm pumped that you're here and we get to have a conversation about ninth graders this week.
I am too. Yes, I love talking about ninth graders.
Okay, you work with strictly ninth graders. Tell us about what your caseload's like, how long you've been doing that, and what your situation at your school's like.
I have about 400 ninth graders on my caseload.
So many. So much drama.
So much drama. I actually have that as a note, as one of the things to talk about. I have 400 on my caseload. We are a school of about 1,500 total students. The rest of the high school separates by alpha group. So I'm the only one that does ninth grade. And so I love that because I feel like I can do that really well and really plan the transitions. And it's been my favorite. My favorite group in high school is ninth grade, just for all the reasons. But that's my current situation. Prior to that, I was working in a very small school that was very focused on the STEM aspect of learning. And I had 400 total students at that school. So I did all grade levels. And then prior to that, I was at another public high school. I spent primarily most of my years working with only ninth graders there too.
Okay. So you were like the woman for the job when you stepped into this ninth grade role. And it sounds like you've never looked back. Like if everybody else is alpha, you probably fought to keep ninth graders that way.
Absolutely. And actually, it's the reason why I applied for this job, because I knew that that's where I was as far as the things I'm good at was with that age group. And so when that came open, and it also helps that it's only 8 minutes down the road, it was the perfect thing.
Okay, we'll talk about that. What things do you feel like you're good at that you bring to that ninth grade age?
Well, I love the age. I love the age because it's a fresh start. I mean, I always tell families and students, there's a reason why you guys are called freshmen, because it's a brand new fresh start. And their challenges and everything they faced in middle school, it's almost as if you can wipe it away, and have this whole brand new beginning.
Yeah, new teachers, new administrators, just new adults in the building that hopefully don't have any preconceived notions of you. I mean, sometimes it follows, but you want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's right. And, when we go and talk to them at the middle school, that's one of the things we bring up is, hey, you can make this what you want it to be. Don't think about what's happened in the past. Don't think about what you're currently doing. And actually, if you don't like how things are currently going, you still have time to pick up the pace and turn it around or get some help. And then we just start a brand new beginning. Plus, they're so fun. I mean, ninth graders, you can still be kind of silly with. They don't think you're super lame yet.
It gives them confidence, honestly. Like when you show them it's okay to be silly or mess up or like embarrass yourself, they're like, oh, okay. Like I can do that too.
Yeah, like we're all going to look goofy in this high school together, not knowing what we're doing. Look at that lady. Crazy.
She's a weirdo. I can be a weirdo too. Cause they're like, they still feel like everybody's looking at me. And I mean, you are a freshman, all eyes on you. And you walk into the building, you think everyone is staring at you.
Is so true. And being a part of that, helping them understand that the sky really is the limit. And they've just started, even though they're starting high school. I know what that feels like. I have a senior now about to be a senior. And so it does go by really quickly, but you can make changes. And so I just love that it's just a whole new beginning.
I feel like you get to be the person who brings a lot of hope right now in ninth grade. Like, the senior counselor is stressed out because they're at the very end and they might have people who won't make it. But like, you're just at the very beginning of that journey. And you get to give out a lot of that hope when they come in and see the fresh start and ask them, like, what do you need help with? How can I get you to where those goals are that you have?
Absolutely. And hear what they've been told in the past too in middle school. And sometimes it's not the most positive thing. And so to be able to say, well, you were told this, but here's the reality. And here's how you can shape your future.
Yeah. What kinds of things do you put in place for them as they transition in from 8th grade into your ninth grade?
It's funny. I tell everybody that I feel like I turn into this counselor to 800 students, 800 students, not to scare anybody out there who wants to maybe do a ninth grade position. But, in the spring semester, you still have your 400 caseload of current ninth graders. But then you start transitioning to these middle schools and talking to the eighth graders. And then it's as if you have 400 more.
So you go to the middle schools and you talk to them, and then they're probably like sending you emails and starting to reach out to you.
Yes, they do. You try to professionally kind of head that off and say, let me direct you back to your counselor at the middle school.
Right. Until you leave that building.
Try to stay with them. So what we do is I'll start with the spring semester because I feel like, okay, they're in eighth grade and we're doing that part of the transition. So in that spring semester around February, we will go, I say it's myself and an administrator will go down to the middle schools. We have 2 feeder middle schools that come into our high school, which is also a great blessing because if you have new students, not to mention the ninth graders who are scared about this whole new start and all these people, I just tell them we're all new. Everyone is new. Even if you've been in our county in this district forever,
there are still people to meet, and there are people that you don't know. Right.
Yeah. So nobody's going to know that you're just a brand new kid, or they're not going to know you're from this middle school or that middle school. So we will go down to the middle schools. I like to do a big overview. I bring kids with me.
Oh, that's fun. Like current ninth graders?
Actually, I take all ages.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I try to reach a lot of demographics, a lot of different activities, clubs, sports, the arts.
So is that like a large assembly? Like they're in a big auditorium when you do that and you have like a panel on stage?
We do a panel at each middle school. It's different. It's typically actually kind of small. I'll spend all day at one of our middle schools that's really big, and they'll just bring them into the media center and they just break them up by classes. They organize all of that for me. And then I'll just bring our students. I'll let them talk. Really, that's who they want to hear from, are those students. Talk about the important parts about high school. And then also that's where I streamline a few things. I've learned to do that over the years, where I go ahead and they bring their laptops and we get them signed up for their Google Classroom. Our school has a Google Classroom for each class. Mm-hmm. So each graduating class has that.
But you're able to start communicating with them, like hit the ground running. They're your students, yes. And now you're in contact with them. That's great.
Yeah, immediately. And have them sign up for their Remind group. So the text messaging system. So we do that too. So we start that in the spring around February, March. Then we'll go back. They get their selections for classes. We talk about that at this meeting too. They get their selections. They get to go home, talk to their families about it, ask some questions to their current 8th grade counselors. And then we come back, and that's when I bring a whole team. So all of our counselors, some administrators, and we just divide and conquer. And we help them register for their classes and put it in. We use Power School. So we help them put it in Power School. And so that's how they get their classes. And then, of course, there's a parent night where parents can come and ask a ton of questions, try to ease their, any
Because the
concerns.
parents are just as nervous as the students.
They're so nervous. And, parents of ninth graders used to intimidate me, I think, before I had kids and then had older kids. And now I just feel for them. I get it.
You've been through it and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, now I see why you're nervous.
Absolutely. So that is part of the planning in the beginning of their 8th grade year. And it just keeps flowing. So, I've got the communication piece figured out for the most part. Then once they get into our system over the summer, we can send out messages to them, which we do, because we also do a half-day freshman orientation.
Oh, I love that. In the summer before school starts?
It's the Friday before school starts.
Okay.
We do a half-day orientation. We also have peer mentors that work directly with our freshmen. And so they are there. They run the whole entire day. I do a training with them as well, but they run the whole entire day. So these freshmen get to meet their peer mentors. They get to find their classes, do some team building, have a hot dog that our principal grilled.
I mean, what is it about back to school nights and hot dogs? Same at my school. It's like, that's what we're looking forward to. I don't know. The whole school smells like hot dogs.
Yep. Here's your hot dog, guys. And if they don't want a hot dog, I tell them just, they can bring their lunch. And the other cool part is we have a really great PTSO. We're working really hard on school spirit at our school. And they, for the past 6 years, I guess, have purchased these class of t-shirts that every single ninth grader gets. So they get the class of, what will they be, 2028?
Fostering the sense of belonging right from the beginning, like making them feel like they're a part of something. Because again, I feel like that would be a thing that an eighth grader, ninth grader would really desire, to feel a part of a friend group, to feel known. I mean, we all do, but ninth graders especially, who are trying to find their place.
Yeah, and that's it. Trying to figure out, where do they belong? Where do they fit in this new world? So it's just a really fun day. And I was really surprised. I started it when I first started working at this school, and I was concerned that no one was going to show up.
Right. We all have that like nightmare the night before. Like, I've put on this big event. I've put a lot of time, energy, thought, money into this. Are people going to come?
Yes. And so it was like 375 showed up.
That's amazing.
I know. I was so surprised. I also hold a parent night the night before all of this, just so we make sure we have all our ducks in a row. If we need any field trip forms signed, because some of them, we do provide some transportation. It's limited, but we provide some. I think that helps too.
Like, who does that? Like social workers, or you have like district buses kind of going out and picking people up?
Our school bus. Our school buses go out, and typically it's our administrators driving.
Stop.
Driving the bus.
Like, whatever it takes. Every kid matters. Let's get them in the doors.
Yes. And I mean, you understand, you're a school counselor. You just ask for a lot and just hope for the best. And the worst they can say is no.
And who wants to turn down like a kid who wants to show up to school? Like, yes, I'm going to go pick you up. I mean, when the school year starts, that's one thing. You're going to hop on the bus. But like, you want that person to be included as well.
Right. Especially. Yes, absolutely. So we'll do a parent night the night before this. So it's usually the Thursday before all this happens. Answer some more questions, get some field trip forms if I need them, remind them one more time, hey, tomorrow's ninth grade orientation. So I feel like it's just one more way to sell what we're doing and just make them feel like they're part of a family.
Yeah. So the ninth grade, the half day event, that's just the students. The parents aren't coming to that. And you do the parents the night before, but you also have like an open house and stuff. Like, does it feel like too much? Are you overwhelmed, or it's just like, this is what we do now and it works, and it helps get the information out?
I feel like it's the best because so many people can't come to everything. Not to mention, I don't know if all states, counties, districts are like this, but you've got a lot of school shoppers out there.
Yeah. They're still deciding.
Yeah.
All the way down to the last minute.
And so I really feel like the one that we have towards the end of the school year in the spring, get some of those school shoppers and get some of those people who are looking for tours and trying to come in for that. But also I mean, we also know that it takes about 7 repetitions to learn things, to know things. So I think if they can hear it as many times as possible, it's good. So we do all of that right before school starts as far as transition goes. And then during the school year, like I said, they have peer mentors that come and meet with them bi-weekly. Once a week, the peer mentors are with 2 specific teachers that will lead them through the lessons that they're going to give to the students the next week.
Okay, let me pause. You went through so many things. Are you doing this all by yourself, or do you have like a freshman academy coordinator, or like, do you work really closely with the administrator for ninth grade? And is it just one administrator? Like, who's putting all this on? Has it all been your brainchild, or do you have like lots of people on a team?
There's a lot of help in our school. I would say a lot of it's been my idea, but remember what I said earlier, just ask people for things and usually they're going to help. And so luckily that's been what's happened. Said, hey, I've got this idea. Can we do it? Sure. I need these resources. Okay. And so definitely in the beginning, I was doing a lot by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, I really need some help. And then that's when I looked around to some teachers that I thought, okay, they could do a good job with this. And so last year they helped out a lot and took on the peer mentors a little bit more, took them under their wings.
Did you feel like you had to like put yourself out there and carry some of that load just to like get it off the ground and say like, hey, I think this could work. I'm going to do it. And now you need to trust me. And like, now I need the help.
100%.
Yes. I think that's really scary for people sometimes.
Absolutely. And I would say that if you had asked me, when I first started being a school counselor, if I would ever try to do anything like that, I would say you're crazy, because it's big, but I guess the more you do things, the more you're used to it, and
right.
You figure out there are really people who can be just as invested as you are.
Yeah. And I found there are people who could be better at something that you have an idea about than you are, or they could bring some really good ideas. But if you're not asking them for help or asking for their feedback or asking for their ideas, like you'll be stressed, never knowing that there's somebody else out there who could like multiply you and your energy and your efforts.
Right. And if you're not, happy about it and you're not bringing a positive energy to it, then the kids aren't going to like it either. So you're right.
And no one wants to be on that team with you if you're not excited about it. And I'm sure someone who's listening to this, who's thinking about implementing such things, is not going to be like the negative Nancy who is like complaining about stuff all the time, because you've got ideas. And part of that is just like getting excited to get other people on board for that. So hopefully, we've already got the right attitude going into this.
Definitely. And maybe this will help somebody see that you can do it.
Yeah. If somebody was a ninth grade counselor, but they were like divided by alpha, would you say you'd just like assign someone to be kind of the point person of some of these events and then you all divide and conquer? Like, how would somebody with like a different caseload model, you think, do this?
I think so. I mean, maybe somebody could take on just specifically registration, and somebody could take on specifically, peer mentors or whatever type of programming you wanted to do to foster that student relationship.
Just like divide and conquer.
You could divide it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then work together. But I do think it's valuable to have other people in the school that are not just counselors involved in it, because it gives whole school buy-in and not just student services or your department.
And I feel like that would help in the long run. Like it would not just be something that would die out. Like if you ever left and you were not the ninth grade counselor anymore, there are some other people in the school building who know how these things run.
Right. I think ultimately that would be the key, to build a tradition or to build something that's just part of your school, that this is just what we do because it works.
And that seems like something that is the core of what you're doing, is like this sense of belonging, this tradition, this school pride, like you said. Those are all like reasons why we're doing this. Like, yes, we want to be able to get them on their mind and get announcements to them. But like at the core of why we're doing this, we want them to transition into a place where they feel known and cared for and like set them up for success for 4 years. It's going to require a lot of buy-in from a lot of different people and not just one person saying this is important.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that my principal said when I first started there was, Felicia, you really got to help us get some school spirit in here. Can you help us get some school spirit? Can you help us with the relationship piece? being aware that that was what was key is all those relationships, at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep your school safe too.
When you signed up to be a high school counselor, you probably didn't think that tradition building and school spirit was going to be something you needed to have on your resume. But it sounds like now you've got that on your resume and you could take that and build a culture at a different school or with a different grade level or something. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And, working in all these different things, you do find the people in your school who are also just as excited about it. And so that has helped too, is finding those teachers that have helped with all of this.
I would think that would help with like your own job satisfaction and like you're excited to show up to work because you just know that you have this energy to feed off of with these other people that you've found in the school. Because it's not going to be everyone, but you got to find your people.
Absolutely. And I think I enjoy a challenge also. I know I've recognized that about myself. And so it's equally as satisfying for the people who are the naysayers, for them to come and be like, okay.
Oh, that was kind of fun.
That was kind of fun.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I want to make this so that you cannot be like, that was boring. I never want to do that again. Like you want that person to change their mind.
Absolutely.
And it's funny that like we're thinking of adults for that. Like there are adults in your building that are dragging their feet who don't want to be at the fun event. You're like, come on, there's like popsicles and music. Like, let's get excited.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. That's why it's scary. That's why it's scary to do new things because What if it fails? Well, it does.
And then you learn from it and I'm not going to do it again. Like you figure it out. I think it's a cool flexibility and creativity that like this muscle that we get to work as counselors, and we're problem solvers. We are creative people, whether you have recognized that about yourself or not, and getting to like put on events. I think it's like a part of some of the fun.
Yes, it is.
I want to introduce you to a 3-episode free private podcast that'll help you reset your year if you're diving in either as a new school counselor or as a high school counselor who wants to be more efficient in what you're doing. This private podcast is called How to Kickstart Your Year as a High School Counselor, and you can add it to your favorite podcast player by going to counselorclick.com/privatepod. In less than 30 minutes, you can listen to 3 episodes that will teach you how to set up your systems, how to ready your caseload, and how to use your data to make decisions. All 3 are actionable strategies that you can put into play tomorrow. Sign up for these 3 exclusive podcast episodes called How to Kickstart Your Year as a High School Counselor by going to counselorclick.com/privatepod. Now, back to the show. Okay, if you were getting together with other 9th grade counselors, what would you like look at each other and be like, we get each other? Like, what's going to make you laugh when you see another 9th grade counselor because like, we get it?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think there's not a lot of difference between the things we would laugh about with 9th graders as even the other kids. But things like, I need a snack. Somebody always needs a snack, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need a note. The bell just rang.
Right. I need a pass. Yep.
I came by to say happy birthday. Well, it's not my birthday. Oh, can I have a note?
I thought it was.
Yeah.
They get so creative.
But I think also maybe the one that would be most for 9th graders would be I didn't know I could actually fail. What do you mean? I am going to actually have to retake that class? Or what do you mean? I didn't think the attendance really counted. Does it really count?
Like for me, I thought they were just saying that.
Yeah, because in middle school, they didn't care,
So it's like their first realization that like the rules apply to them and they can fail if they don't do work, or, they actually will get disciplined if they get in a fight or, use their fire torch wrong in welding or something.
Yes.
Those 9th graders, man, they haven't developed that brain yet. They don't think that the consequences are going to apply to them.
They don't. They're in summer attendance school right now, still coming by, saying things like, you think I really need to come tomorrow?
Like, yes, that's why you are in this predicament in the first place.
Probably should be here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what you kind of mentioned, like working with parents a little bit. I feel like 9th grade parents would be a unique bunch. And you have been there. You've been a 9th grade parent before. So like you said, your perspective changed a little bit. Maybe talk about that. Like before you kind of maybe rolled your eyes at them and now you're like, oh, I get that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. I think this is another reason why it's important to do that parent night right before they start, because I think
You probably head off a lot of phone calls and emails that way.
absolutely it's one of the ways. Prior to this, you'd asked me about streamlining. That is a great way to streamline some of the, frequently asked questions, frequently freakouts, frequent freakouts. You can just kind of head it all off at the pass. And it's so important for parents to know and to hear from, if it's not you, to hear from someone at the school that their kids need them more now than they needed them when they were little.
Mm.
I mean, these teens need you to be more present now than when they were in elementary school. Now, it's not going to feel like it.
They're going to push you away. They're going to stiff arm you, right?
Absolutely. But that's also important for parents to know that, hey, it is going to happen probably that they're going to push away. That's probably a little healthy, but also letting them know that, hey, that's part of the reason why you've got these other adults in their lives, these teachers, these counselors, coaches in their lives, because they're going to need another adult along with you that's going to be a safe place. And so letting them meet people like that, especially at that meeting.
Yeah.
I invite the administrators, I invite coaches, our school nurse, just anybody that would be important in their lives so they can just see them, talk to them, see that they really do care, that they're there for their best interest. I just think it's important also to remember when you're a counselor, just to, like you said, being patient with the parents, because it's hard. And it's really, you never realize, everybody says, don't blink. It goes by so fast. And it does. But as soon as those feet hit the door in ninth grade, I feel like it was lightning speed. And so I know what these parents are feeling like, and it's a hard transition.
Like they have their own emotions too, that they're thinking,
Yeah.
well, how did we get here? We just started kindergarten. Like I imagine that goes by so fast up even to that point. And then they know that it's coming right around the corner, graduation.
Absolutely. I do this thing, the jar full of marbles that I bring out at this particular parent night. And I'll have them say, let's estimate how many marbles are in this. You try to make it kind of fun. And in the end, there's 209 marbles in this jar, which represents 209 weeks left that their kids have left of school, period, of all of school until they graduate. And so just to help them visualize, I mean, I wish I could show people on a podcast what this looks like, but 209 marbles in a jar, a jar's like, it's not even halfway full. And so it just kind of helps parents think in a way like, okay, let's make the most of this. Let's understand that these people are here to help us too. And then just reminding myself that they're going to ask me the same question, even though we've streamlined it, I'm still going to get that same question a lot, and to be patient, because it's the first time they've heard the answer, even though I've said it a million times.
Right.
Just a reminder from my own self,
Well, and I think as a parent, like at this point with a child who's entered school, there's nothing much more than I appreciate than over communication. I'm like, if you think you've said it already, like we all know we get a million text messages a day, a million emails. Like I'm like finding that like, okay, I got to filter through it. I'm adding this to my calendar. I'm just like seeing it from a different perspective as a parent too. And we just entered this world, but same with high school. And I imagine like getting that communication from all the different teachers, counselors, administrators, phone calls, phone blasts. Like it's going to feel like a lot. So they're still trying to filter that information. So, and maybe they don't have the flexibility to be checking that all the time. And so I also think like when you're standing up there saying it, you have to remember you're talking to people who have never heard this information before. Like this could be their oldest child, their only child, maybe the parent dropped out of school in ninth grade and like they haven't even been through this yet. So, we're talking to them thinking we know this stuff. We've said it a million times, but for them, it might literally be the very first time they've ever heard it.
Right. And if they only hear it one time, can you imagine? That's so hard. You would not remember all the things.
No.
And so,
No.
yeah. And then I think it's also important just for us to remind parents that they're still the expert of their child, even though they may not feel like it anymore, just giving that boost. Like
Yeah, you're giving the parents a pep talk really at this meeting. Like, you got
Yes.
this. You can do it. You are the expert. You know your child because they are probably feeling really distant from them or like, I don't know my kid anymore. They just came off of like the angstiest years of their child's
Yes.
life. They probably feel pretty distant from them.
Yeah. They might feel a little traumatized.
Right. Like, no, it's going to get better.
Yeah. Being real with them, just being real that it is. It will get better and there's going to be some moments that are really hard and hopefully you're going to have some rewarding moments too.
Do you give them time in that meeting to like connect with each other and like find common ground with each other or like meet each other? Or does your district, like everybody, the adults kind of know each other too?
No, but that's a great idea. We don't. It's a great
I don't know.
idea.
It's like any kind of meeting. Some people hate that kind of stuff and they want to go and not talk to anyone and leave. But I imagine there would be like a camaraderie seeing that familiar face then at drop off or at the sporting event or something. When we did coffee with the counselors, it was always just like a small group of parents who would come. But when those ones would come time and time again and they were kind of talking and sharing about struggles and good things and hard things, I could see that light them up. Like they were coming to learn something that would help social emotionally, like with their kids, and having other people relate to that was like really encouraging to them. I could tell.
I think it's a great idea. And you really need those parents involved in high school. I mean, you really just do. And we do invite the PTSO to the orientation just so they can try to see if anybody wants to sign up. And we have an excellent PTSO at our school. So I would love for more to sign up. So it's great to invite them too.
Well, and like in high school, you're struggling with like even how do you introduce yourself to people? But I'm like, still as an adult, when you're like new to a school or a setting, you're like, I mean, I think I should introduce myself. I should go first. Like maybe they're feeling the same way and they want to know other people, but they're shy. And I'm like, and I'm not, but I don't feel like it right now, but I'm going to put myself out there and introduce. Like there could be a lot of people in that room who feel like that. Like we've never done this high school thing before and like giving them some like prompts at the table to like ask somebody next to them, like,
Yeah, I
is this
love
your
it.
first kid at the high school or whatever? But I don't
That's a
know. I
great
imagine that would
idea.
be like really encouraging to parents to even
I
just
think it
be in that
would.
room with you and experts and telling them that they're the expert too.
Oh, that's a really good idea. See, I'm learning,
Like we
getting
show
some
up
ideas.
to share some ideas. I know. What hard things are there that you would say, like you have celebrated working with ninth graders and it sounds like you really enjoy it and you really love it. Is there anything that you're like, this is hard always?
I think the larger caseload can be a hard thing. I would guess that for most people, ninth grade would be the largest. It has been everywhere I've worked.
Hmm.
So that's hard, but manageable. In my opinion, what I'm doing is manageable. I think that other hard things would be 504s and IEPs. A lot of times it will fall in the ninth grade. So if
Hmm.
for whatever reason things were missed when they were younger, ninth grade's where it hits. So that's hard. I know most of us probably don't love that kind of stuff. That's probably my least favorite thing.
But they're like roping you into every single email and every single conversation about it and go pull their file and let's research and figure out what went wrong. But I bet you're involved in a lot of that, whether you're
A
leading
lot.
it or not.
Right. A lot of it. And so that's probably for me the biggest thing. It's not hard for me. Again, I think it's a personality thing, but it would be important to know that you are dealing with a lot of drama in ninth grade, a lot of peer mediation, a lot of just honestly being a mom. I mean, you're a counselor for sure, but just like being that, like this is enough kind of a talks, the boundaries. Your boundaries have to be real good in ninth grade, I think, or else they could just totally walk all over you if you let them.
Hmm.
The boundaries of, you should be in class right now.
And you need to go. Goodbye.
Right. Yeah. We've had this conversation 6 times. Now it's time to go.
Yeah, you could be tricked, I feel like, pretty easily if you were like, oh yeah, you can stay here all day. And then soon you've got 400 students in your office doing the same thing.
Yes, 100%. So boundaries are super important. I think the public speaking aspect of it, I do feel like I have to talk an awful lot more than my other counselors on my team.
Yeah. Or they could kind of like pass it off to each other, like whoever likes to do it the most could show up and do it. But like you're the face of ninth grade.
Yeah. So there's that. And so learning to do that, I mean, at my age now, I'm just whatever, just
Right.
roll with it. But at the
Right.
beginning, it was kind of hard,
Intimidating.
intimidating. And then the parent involvement, there's a lot of parent involvement. And now I really, like I said, I really enjoy it. But in the beginning, it was hard because let's just say before I even had kids, it was really hard to talk to them sometimes and have that comfort level.
And I think like part of you like wants the student to be independent too. That's why I find myself kind of with this tension of I want the student to be an advocate for themselves. Like I know what's coming down the pipeline. Like by the time you get out of 12th grade, you need to be able to do that. And so I think I can be like too harsh to a ninth grader thinking like, but come on, like why is your mom calling the school? Why is your mom sending me an email? And part of that, carries all the way through high school. You're just going to have some of those parents who do that. But I think I could always stand to like give some more grace to a ninth grader who's never had to do that before, whose parent hasn't allowed them to do that. It's like everybody's learning in ninth grade what their roles are and how to be a little more independent than they were in middle school.
Yeah. And I think those are great things to focus on, especially in classroom guidance, those
Mm-hmm.
skills, especially email skills, how to talk to your peers, how to talk to your other adults in the building, how not to interrupt, just social cues in general. Those are good for ninth graders
Yeah.
for like large classroom settings.
Yeah, that's good. And they can practice with each other and they're allowed to make mistakes there. And you're telling them like, this is what's normal. This is what's not. And let's get down to business.
Absolutely. And I have had those times where, I've called the student in after their parents sent me the email or done the phone call, and it really probably should have been the kid. And I just say, hey, I got this phone call, and let's talk about that. In the future, now you know where my office is. You know who I am. Just try to come to me
Yeah.
and let's work through it. And I promise if we need to reach out to your parents, we'll do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Just equipping them, reminding them of who you are, showing them like how they could solve the problem on their own. And then you can respond to the parent and say, yeah, great. We actually talked about it. And you kind of don't have to involve the parent as much anymore. I mean, whatever, you have to use your discretion. But if it is something that the student should be able to handle, and you see enough of those scenarios, so you're probably a good judge of that already. Like this is something that a student can do by themselves or handle. Now they know how to do it.
Yeah. And I think that once parents know you as well, they can start to trust you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of, they ease up a little bit. They may start in with, here are all the very specific things I need you to do versus then you might get to the point where you're like, they just call you and say, hey, do your thing,
Right. That's a much better feeling.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, okay, you're going to speak to me like that. That's how this is going to go.
Yeah. And then just going back to recognizing, okay, this parent is so scared right now.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you just call it out on the phone, or it's usually on the phone, let's be honest, they're calling you scared.
Right.
Usually when you kind of can call that out and say, like, I know this must be really scary right now, and talk them through it, they calm down, you get to a place where you can really help the student and turn it back around.
You've given us so many good things to think about, from like the perspective of a ninth grade counselor to the perspective of eighth graders transitioning into being ninth graders and like entering high school. And then the parent perspective as someone who has been a parent, having kids come through that age, to just like your experience working with so many students and parents for so many years in ninth grade. Like, I'm sure you've seen it all. You could probably write a book at this point.
We've talked about it. Our whole department has.
Like, write this down so we can laugh about it later. Because, if you don't laugh, you'll cry about it, I'm sure. So,
Absolutely.
Felicia, thank you for being on the pod. You offered
Yeah.
so much wisdom. I know that this is going to help some counselor out there, multiple counselors out there who either work with ninth graders or who are thinking about it, or like you said, see a position for just ninth grade counselor. And now they can have some perspective of what that might look like.
Yes, absolutely. And don't be afraid of it.
I mean, I think you were super encouraging. Like, I mean, you put yourself out there and you're going to make mistakes, but it sounds like such a rewarding position to just work with ninth graders, if that's a possibility for someone.
I think so.
You've sold it. Well, thanks for being on the podcast this week.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Seriously, Felicia is so cool. And this conversation was so fun about ninth graders, wasn't it? If you have any more questions for her or you just want to connect with her, she's over on Instagram at School Counseling Smart. Of course, I'll link that in your podcast player show notes so you can go straight there to her page from Instagram. She and I originally connected in DMs and we've followed each other for a really long time. So I know that she could be your friend too. And I know that she'll love me saying that because she loves to chat about high school counseling. I'll link some specific ninth grade resources in the show notes. And if you haven't had a chance yet, go back and listen to last week's episode with middle school counselor Lauren Tenholder, who tells us what it's like to get those eighth graders ready to launch into high school. And then stick with us for our upcoming weeks with, you guessed it, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. We'll see you next week as we continue our series and we talk about sophomores. See you then. Thanks for listening to today's episode of High School Counseling Conversations. All the links I talked about today can be found in the show notes and also at counselorclick.com/podcast. Be sure to hit follow wherever you listen to your podcast so that you never miss a new episode. Connect with me over on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM at counselorclick. That's CLIQUE. I'll see you next week.